Shame is one of those things that we all have, but that none of us really like to talk about or even admit that we struggle with it, at least sometimes. But as you know, because you have experienced shame, it is an emotionally overwhelming experience and can really keep us stuck. Because fundamentally, shame is that voice inside of our head that tells us that there's something flawed about who we are, that there's something about us that makes us in particular, not good enough, not worthy enough of love and belonging, that we don't measure up in some way, that there is something damaged, broken, or flawed about us. And so we can imagine, you can see how getting stuck in shame can be so debilitating. We get stuck in our heads with these beliefs about ourselves, these thoughts about ourselves. It can hold us back from experiencing things, from building close connections because we fear that there's something about us that's going to be unlovable or rejectable, or, there's something about us that's not good enough, that no one's going to even want us in the first place. It's going to hold us back from going for things that we want in our life because we think, well, I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. I can't do that. I'm not worthy of that. Right? If it's a career move, if it's going back to school, if it's a dream that you want to fulfill, if it's a project that you want to take on, a hobby that you want to get into, whatever it is, it's amazing how shame infiltrates so much of our psyche when we let it. And I'm not saying that we intentionally let shame infiltrate, but many of us don't know what to do when it does. We have messages and thoughts and teachings and beliefs that we've picked up somewhere along the way that tell us that who we are is fundamentally not good enough in some way, or maybe in all the ways, or at least all the ways that really matter. So today we're going to talk about using our emotional intelligence, which many of you have been building from watching these videos. Many of you are part of the Shift Society from the deeper work we've been doing in there. We're going to talk about using emotional intelligence to start cutting through shame, start working through shame. Now, this is not a one and done. Shame infiltrates. For many of us, it has metastasized through so much of our being that it's not just going to be a one and done, but these are the steps that we start taking today, that as we practice them and as we make an intention of doing them on a regular basis, then shame starts to shrink. Shame doesn't stand a chance when we start to go up against it using these skills that I'm going to teach you that are based in our own emotional intelligence that we've been building. Stay tuned. I know that you're going to get a lot out of this one, especially if you, like me, have or still do struggle with shame. If you're new here, welcome to our incredible little corner on the internet. Take a second, introduce yourself in the comment section below. If you are back again, always good to have you. My shifters, say hello. It is always so great to have you here watching. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Button's about right down there. Like the video if you get something out of it. That would be amazing. Either way, my name is Kristina, and I'm a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, a coach, and the creator of my membership community, the Shift Society, I just mentioned. Saying hi to the shifters. Those are the members of my membership community, the Shift Society, where we are taking this work to a deeper level, understanding ourselves, understanding our thoughts and our emotions, understanding what's holding us back, learning a step-by-step method to take charge of our minds and emotions, no matter whoever or whatever is happening around us, so that we can step into and fully live our lives freely and with love and belonging and without all of this shame. I help heart-centered humans break through the crap that is holding them back so that they can like themselves and their lives more every day. And you can get more information if you're like, what is this Shift Society, Julia? I need to know more. Look in the description below. There's a link there with more information about the Shift Society so you can get on the wait list, get more information so you get notified as soon as we open up registration, which we only do a few times a year. So let's talk about this with our emotional intelligence. What is the 3 things that we can start doing to use our emotional intelligence, start breaking through shame? And the first one is It sounds, it sounds simple, but it's not always easy. And this one is to start getting comfortable with the full range of emotions. You've heard me talk about this before. There's no such thing as a good or bad emotion, a right or wrong emotion. There are just emotions. And it's amazing how much we do shame ourselves for different emotions that come up, right? When's the last time you were like, oh, I'm feeling so jealous right now? Or, oh, I'm feeling so upset right now. Oh, I just totally took that personally and my feelings are so hurt. What's wrong with me? Can't I just let things go? Why do I let things bother me? What's wrong with me, right? What's wrong with me? Why am I so broken? Why am I so flawed? Why do I have to struggle with this? What's wrong with me? And that is such a huge shame statement that so many of us use. What's wrong with me? Which is this rhetorical question implying that there is in fact something wrong with me for feeling this feeling, whatever feeling that is. But when we move into radical acceptance of the full range of emotions, then that shame for whatever we are feeling dissipates, it dissolves. And it's not to say we have to love every feeling we're feeling. It's not to say we should, celebrate if we're feeling jealous or upset or hurt, right? That's not it. But it's just saying that all emotions are a part of life. All of our feelings are part of the human experience. So being able to observe our emotions and be able to deal with those emotions as they come up and be able to work through it without the judgment is going to make it so much easier. And it's going to go from you struggling with feeling jealous or feeling upset or feeling hurt or feeling angry and judging yourself for feeling that, right? So I have this primary emotion, which is my jealousy, my sadness, my hurt, my anger. That's this emotion. I mean, some would say anger is a primary emotion, a secondary emotion, but it can also be a primary emotion. So that's what we're going for here. So I'm feeling these feelings, right? But then I've come in with secondary emotions to judge myself for those feelings. I've told myself, I'm shaming myself and come in with shame for feeling these feelings. What's wrong with you? Why do you always do this? Why can't you just get past it? Why can't you just let it go? Why can't you just think positive? You're such a weirdo. You're so pathetic, right? Like all of these other judgments around are that kind of that emotion, that one emotion we're feeling. And then that is what we get stuck in. And then we've created all this shame around this one experience instead of just saying, okay, this is what I'm feeling right now. Right or wrong, good or bad, healthy or unhealthy, productive or unproductive is irrelevant. This is just what I'm feeling. So I am going to acknowledge that emotion. And then I'm going to give myself the space to move through it. I'm going to give myself the space to experience it, to notice it. This is a human experience that I'm having in this moment. It's not right or wrong or good or bad. It just is. I'm not going to judge it. I'm just going to allow myself to experience it. And then that's going to be what allows me to go to the next steps to move through it. Because then I'm not having to kind of weed through and kind of push through all the muck of the shame and the judgment around it first in order to get to it, which we often don't do. We just get stuck in the shame and judgment and don't actually move through it or heal from it. So whatever feeling I'm feeling, it's okay. I don't have to love it. I don't have to feel great about it, but it's okay. So moving with that in that first step, that ability to be comfortable with the discomfort of any emotion, to be accepting of whatever emotion that's coming up. Now, here's a little caveat. If you've been through trauma, and if you're struggling with trauma, it can feel very unsafe to allow yourself to feel whatever feeling is coming up, right? So what we want to do is if you are struggling with trauma, to be able to seek a professional, to be able to do some kind of training course on trauma, to be able to even, do a course on grounding if like therapy is not accessible for you, to find some kind of course on grounding, which I should do. I think I have some videos on grounding. I have some videos here on YouTube about grounding skills. So what you're going to want to do before you can kind of feel safe to feel whatever feeling you're feeling, you need to start just feeling safe in your body by being in the quiet and grounding yourself. Grounding yourself in the quiet before you just sort of allow yourself to step into the emotions in the quiet. So practicing some grounding skills first, spending as much time as you need. Maybe it's a few days, maybe it's a few weeks, maybe it's a few months. Just practicing grounding exercises to get to the place where you can feel safe in the quiet before you feel safe, letting all those emotions come up without getting all attached to them and worked up about them in the moment. So, a little caveat there. Again, this is all stuff we do in the Shift Society, and I teach you how to ground, and I teach you what an emotion is, and I teach you how to be with your emotions, teach you how to work through your emotions, but I wanted to give you some stuff to get started with here now for those of you who are struggling with this. The next thing you do to use our emotional intelligence to move through shame, and I just mentioned a little bit of this, is this open-hearted acceptance. So accepting our emotions, accepting what's coming up for us, even accepting whatever thoughts are going through our head that are creating the shame. Now, a little bit of an explanation here and sort of a caveat. Acceptance doesn't mean that we've resigned ourselves to it. Oh, well, I feel like a terrible person, so I'm just going to accept that and just go through life feeling like a terrible person. That's not it. It's not resigning ourselves to it. Accepting it is just being able to say, right or wrong, good or bad, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm experiencing in this moment. This is a human experience. And this is what is happening with me right now. And I accept this experience in this moment. I don't have to love it. I don't have to feel great about it. I don't have to want it. But I accept that this is where I'm at, because if we are not willing to accept where we're at, if we're not willing to accept what's coming in, if we're not willing to acknowledge it, we cannot work through it. We cannot heal from it. We cannot deal with it. If we are constantly avoiding, numbing, rejecting anything that's coming up for us, if we're not willing to look at it and say, okay, I accept that this is what's happening, and if we're pushing it away, there's no chance. We can't actually deal with it. Spending our whole lives in avoidance of our emotions, in rejection of our experiences, over the long term, creates so much more distress, invades our lives in so many more significant ways, and over time takes way more energy to keep avoiding and repressing and pushing away our emotions than it does to kind of be in that discomfort of allowing them to be, accepting where we're at, and then being able to move through them, being able to deal with them. We can't deal with something if we're not willing to accept that it exists in the first place. And again, back to step one, if we're accepting it without judgment, just acknowledging it as a human experience without putting all the shame around it, then we get better at being human and moving through the stuff that we're struggling with, because we're not adding that whole layer of shame, which just compounds even more shame. The next step is to learn how to soothe and settle unpleasant emotions. So when we develop our emotional intelligence, we don't stop feeling upsetting emotions. We don't stop having difficult or uncomfortable emotions. That's not what it is. Becoming emotionally intelligent doesn't mean that you become a human being who only ever experiences half their feelings, right? In order to be a complete being, we need to experience the full range of what it means to be human, which is all of our emotions, all of our experiences. So people with high emotional intelligence don't never feel two negatives equal a positive. Let's go with it. They don't not ever have difficult emotional experiences. They just know how to move themselves through it. They don't get stuck in it. They don't spiral out of control with it. They are able to move with and through that unpleasant emotion, that unpleasant experience, those thoughts that are coming into your head and wreaking all kinds of havoc. They know how to soothe and settle those and move through them. The other thing is, when we learn how to soothe and settle our unpleasant emotions, by some of the things that we've already talked about here, by acknowledging, accepting ourselves for having them, by practicing grounding techniques, by being gentle with ourselves and getting curious about what's coming up for us instead of judging it. Those are all ways of helping us move through them. So when we sort of create a safe container for ourselves to feel more of a full range of emotions, then we don't feel so afraid of feeling those emotions. Stay with me on this. And unpleasant emotions are less likely to come up as often because we're not afraid of it. Because we know that all human experiences are human experiences, right? Where we have created that place of like loving self-compassion and acceptance for ourselves for where we're at, then they just don't come up as often because we're like, I'm doing okay. Like, this is a hard moment. This is a struggle right now, but I'm okay and I can handle this and I can get through this. So it doesn't become this big dramatic thing in our brains. Our brains don't kind of freak out and be like, oh my gosh, this is so awful. I can't handle this. I can't do this. What's wrong with me? I'm so pathetic. Or I'm never going to get through this. Or this is so awful, right? It doesn't create all this drama around it. It's like, okay, this is tough. This is hard. This is unpleasant, but I can deal with it. I can get through it. One foot in front of the other, one step at a time. Time to get curious. Time to, get in there and see what thoughts are creating all these emotions. Time to be gentle with myself. Time to, emotionally just sort of remove myself from it and observe it mindfully. I mean, these are all things that we learn more deeply in the Shift Society. So if you're like, what? Writing it down, like, what does that mean? There's so much to talk about. We can't possibly do it in a YouTube video here, but come into the Shift Society. This is where we learn all of these deeper skills. But in the meantime, to get you started, learning to just soothe yourself with whatever emotion that's coming up is going to both help you move through it more quickly, and it's going to make it less often that big, intense, overwhelming thoughts and emotions come in and kind of take you out. So soothing, again, being gentle with yourself, acknowledging, accepting, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, with just sort of processing through whatever emotion is coming up. If learning to just be with your thoughts and feelings without getting so worked up about them, so attached to them, is something that you want to learn how to do, I also have a free audio exercise for you. It's my 10-minute guided mindfulness exercise. Thousands of you have it already. I get emails all the time about how much you love it. Some people have said they do the same meditation every single day. They don't even go to any other meditation because they just love this one so much. And it's just like a ritual to get their head in the right place as they are going through their days. That's part of their self-care routine. And so that 10-minute guided mindfulness exercise in the description below, it's completely free. You can grab that, put some earphones in, and, bring yourself through both a calming exercise and some teaching around learning to unattach, not get so caught up in whatever feeling is coming up, learning how to get comfortable with more of our human experience, learning how to accept more of our human experience, learning how to soothe and settle ourselves regardless of what we are experiencing. Make sure you grab that. Also, get on the waitlist for the Shift Society. The waitlist link is right down there. It is always so good to have you here. Let me know what connected with you, what made sense to you. What are you going to start being intentional about working on now? Would love to hear that in the comment section below. Always good to have you here. And until next time, take good care of yourselves, take good care of those around you. Bye for now.